and share ideas with him or her. And I could only imagine what Americans were like by reading books. And one of my favorites were O. Henry, William Sidney Porter, and Jack London. And I admired their characters. They had determination, they had dignity, and they had a style in every person, regardless were rich and famous, or it was poor or homeless. Because later on I studied, not studied, but I listened to Voice of America a little bit, and whenever it was not jammed. And what a difference it was in the reporting. You know, the Soviet news were only, seemed like a commentary, and Voice of America seemed so impartial. Anyway, I admired the style of reporting. And also, especially I liked the literary programs. And I had a great pleasure several years later after I came to the United States to personally meet a literary editor of Voice of America. And it was a very exciting meeting that I had with her. Kennedy Airport was the first place where I encountered America. And my memories retain calm, cleanliness, and carpet on the floor where our daughter Lupa slept while waiting for a connecting flight to Chicago. And in general, my first impressions were very much aligned with what I expected. And people were polite, confident, open, and sympathetic. Nevertheless, there were a few surprises. First surprise was that when in a year or so I traveled, actually we traveled by car to New York City. And I was shocked that in the middle of nowhere, as I thought, in Pennsylvania forest, I stopped in the restroom and they were spotlessly clean and didn't smell. So restrooms on the highway was my standard reply when people frequently asked me what were my major impressions of the United States. Another encounter was, as I looked at this, was like a spooky encounter. A few days, a few weeks after I came here, I was boarding an L train, and somebody handed me a brochure. And at that time, I could hardly speak, read English, but I could recognize words, Communist Party. And I knew the name Guess Hall. And let me ask you a question. How many of you know who Guess Hall was? What? Because this is a more enlightened group than I usually encounter. Anyway, I was so paranoid of the omnipotence of the Communist Party and their security arm, KGB, that for a moment my mind became irrational. I was contemplating ideas that KGB is following me everywhere. But my dreams, my bad dreams, didn't last long. I had other things to worry about, like finding a job. And what a fascinating experience it was. And also challenging, of course. Every Sunday, I would buy a newspaper, Chicago Tribune, and read the help wanted section. And I gotta tell you that reading the help wanted section was my probably most effective English classes I ever had. At the beginning, every word had to be translated with a dictionary. And those acronyms, wow. Luckily, I was going to Truman College, and some of the teachers would help me with those acronyms. But the next step was even more challenging. Some people, of course, required sending resume, which I did, but some ads asked for phone calls. So I would dial a number, wait for a reply, and read my speech that I prepared. Hello, I am Yefim Kotlyar. I am a recent immigrant from the Soviet Union. I read your ad in the newspaper and I am looking for a job. And for several weeks, I had no slightest idea what people were telling me in response. Sometimes I feel I should be given a credit for those phone calls that you get from computer-generated phone calls. You pick up the phone and you hear the voice, and in a few moments you realize that there is no point of talking back. So anyway, as much as was insufficient in English, I was determined to find a job. And one day, my determination was rewarded. I got a real job interview. And it was only in Franklin Park, and at that time I lived in East Rogers Park. It was only 15 miles. And of course, I wouldn't allow my destiny in the hands of a bus driver who would stop at every corner and delay my interview and decide I will have to change buses, and that bus may have a mechanical problem and never arrive. So I decided to take my destiny in my own hands, and I decided I would bike from East Rogers Park to Franklin Park to my interview. And I guess that the interviewer had more than one reason not to hire me. But at that time, I had a suspicion that he didn't think highly about my means of transportation. And when he asked me about transportation, I said there would be no problem. I'll buy a car as soon as I earn, get a job and earn some money. And perhaps he didn't think very highly about my appearance either, because half the way through, it started to drizzle a little bit, and my outfit didn't look as sharp as I wanted it to be. But eventually I got a job, and I worked with that job for 3 months, and I learned a few more words. Some of the words that I learned were insufficient funds. It turned out that the company did not have enough funds to pay for payroll. And I would get a check and it would bounce, and I get another check and bounce again. So I started to look for another job. In 3 months I got another job, and I worked at that job for 13 years. It was a great job. I had a lot of educational opportunity to enrich my professional skills and also my personal skills. There is another story that I would like to tell you that is relevant to my adjustment here. Is really mentioned to you that I was involved in trying to get my friend out of prison, and it happened in 1983. And at the beginning, of course, I turned to my friends, my close friends, that stayed with me till the very end. But it was so energizing for me to get so much support from churches, from synagogues, from different human rights organizations, from several Amnesty International groups, college professors, universities, writers group, concerned scientists, and of course senators and congressmen. All of a sudden I realized that the United States is the place where it could be the most effective in raising awareness about her plight and trying to get her released. Of course, during those days, nobody could imagine that the Soviet rigid system would ever crumble. But my hope was that at least if Soviet authorities know about her, that she is known in the West, it would give her some degree of protection in the labor camp. And it is ironic that when I think about today that the Soviet authorities and system of 60s and 70s look so timid now as compared with today's villains who, Al-Qaeda, who behead people and want everybody in the world to know about that. I love America, and I can't help it, despite of so much criticism that I hear from my friends here and elsewhere. But if seriously I love America because people have a chance to criticize everything they want to criticize. You and I feel safe to criticize anything you feel wrong with America. And of course, you know, I love America because my family have pretty comfortable living here. I have a job that I enjoy. I was able to raise my children in peace. And I made so many friends here. And I met so many people who inspired me along the way. But there are many more reasons why I love America, and we can discuss it during our coffee hour. You know, I truly believe that this is a unique civilization in the history of mankind. And unfortunately, the more I live in the United States, the more I take for granted all those unbelievable possibilities that people have here. All over the world, people have problems, they make mistakes, commit crimes, there is poverty, there is discrimination, there is violence, there are all kinds of ills. But what makes this country different is that we have the greatest freedom to advocate for change. And if we convince enough people that we can bring about change without violence and retributions. Thank you.